decent point for Sunderland this weekend as we drew 1-1 with Luton Town away from home. I'm Conor Bromley, and I'm today joined in the studio by two men who are qualified to comment on the weekend's game, and Gav was not there.
No, I was in a field in the lakes, watching it on a laptop.
Fair. Oh well.
Still got to say it though.
Fair enough. James Nichols, you were at the game yesterday and you were sat with the lads fans. How are you doing?
Great. I'm good today. A little bit hungover again as usual, but the better, more undefeated we are, the more that I can be happy to sit in the podcast on Sunday, ill but happy.
We are also joined in the studio by special guest and Sunderland Echo writer Phil Smith. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me on. Nice to be here.
Making your debut?
Indeed, yeah.
Is this your podcast debut? Have you been on any of this?
No, I've been on some other Sunderland fan podcasts. This is my debut on this particular one, so exciting times.
Good. And Gav, I've already spoke to you. How's you?
A bit like James, I'm a bit hungover.
You're hungover as well?
Well, 3 days in the lakes with your mates. You're not going to not drink, are you?
Oh, I thought you took your last. I thought it was a romantic.
No, it wasn't one of them.
No, it wasn't a romantic getaway.
We just Googled campsites which allowed groups on. There was like 2 in the whole country. This was one of them.
Fair.
So,
You did quite well to get a connection to watch the game in the lakes. I'm quite
tell that
impressed.
off my phone. I'm quite techie, you know. Yeah.
What about
Tell it off my phone. Then we're watching the Newcastle game first. The Mags were thoroughly depressed at that, and then tuned in for the lads. Actually, no, sorry, I wasn't in the lakes. I was in Alaska. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you were in Alaska watching.
Yeah, I was in Alaska watching it. Sorry,
Might look
for
like
VPN purposes. I was out of the country.
Before we get properly going on today's podcast, I just want to ask Phil, do you want to inform the audience of who you are if they don't know?
I basically head up the Sunderland Echo's football coverage, press conferences, home away, all that kind of stuff. So Sunderland fan from very early age. I had a season ticket for about 10 years before I went off to uni up in Edinburgh. And then I covered Cardiff for a year or so before coming back about halfway through our last season in the Premier League. So I left Cardiff just as they were on the rise under Neil Warnock, and then came up to Sunderland just as they were about to go on a spectacular collapse. So I've kind of made some interesting career choices, but writing about Sunderland, so I can't complain too much, especially not at the moment, to be fair.
In Edinburgh, who was your team, Hearts or Hibs?
Hearts.
Hearts,
Yeah, I lived with a few Hearts supporting friends, so I used to go to quite a few Hearts games, and those were the days where you had Kevin Carr and Stephen Elliott up front for Hearts and Roy O'Donovan up front for Hibs, so yeah, that was quite... Kevin Carr was actually very popular at Hearts, so I used to have the kind of odd sensation of walking up to Hearts games and everyone would be stood outside the pub with Kyle 9 on the back, and I was just having watched him at Sunderland, that was just a surreal sensation, but they loved him up there.
Okay, section 1, we're going to talk about the game. I'll explain the sections now, actually. So we're going to talk the game, and then we're going to have a specific section on League Cattermole. It was a big talking point this weekend, and
Was indeed, yes.
Thought he deserves a section. We're going to talk a little bit about the transfer window and if we need anybody else and the business so far, and then have a few final questions at the end. So the game itself, a good starting point. Call Me Al asks, new listening to the podcast, didn't see the game, but can you give us a good overview of the formation, lineup, tactics, and any changes from the first game, please? I'm sure that's what you do as standard, but just checking. So Phil, do you want to take off? How do we line up? What was the...
Well, it was in terms of the system and the formation, it was very similar to how they started against Charlton. They reverted to a back four, but I suppose the big difference was that Max Power came in and played as sort of the deepest line midfielder. Probably the role I would expect Dylan McGeoch to play when he comes back into the team. I think ideally you want Max Power to play a little bit further forward. And the other big change was that Jack Baldwin came in for Ali Moztek, which made a big difference to the team because what we immediately saw from Jack was, one, he's quite calm on the ball, and two, he's not rapid, but he's quick enough. And I think that made a big difference to the balance of the team, and it made a massive difference to Glenn Loovens, who Charlton looked ropey, looked a little nervous, looked a little bit uncomfortable. Yesterday, he looked absolutely tremendous. I thought he was just so strong, so solid. Decision making was excellent. So those were the two big positives, I think. It was very similar to what we've seen from Jack all the way through. I didn't think it was any different because it was an away game necessarily. They still try to do the right things. But I think having Glenn, Jack and Max just allowed them to be a little bit more solid than I think what we saw against Charlton, especially in the first half.
James, do you think that it's going to be Loovens and Baldwin for the rest of the year if they're both fit?
Hopefully. That's the idea. I want to settle defence, and they looked really strong together. They kind of complement each other quite nicely as well. Loovens himself is a leader. I got that really strongly from the weekend. Like, I was quite close to our goal at one point, because like Luton, there's literally like a foot gap in between the back of the net and the front of the stand. So I'm like 10 rows back, and you could visibly hear visibly
hear it.
audibly hear Leuven's like shouting at everyone all the time for like the full match. Like, even like the moment that the corner's given, he's like telling people who to mark, where to go, from like as soon as the ball's cleared or whatever. He's like push out. You can like really easily hear him. It's a bit. He's not captain, but if you look in rugby, like you've got a captain, and then you've got in your forwards, you've got a pack leader, they're known as. That's kind of what Leuven's is for Sunderland. He's not the captain, but he's very much the leader at the back. And Baldwin alongside him, I think Baldwin, he had less to worry about than he did with Ozturk, so he could focus on his own job. I didn't personally think Leuven's was that impressive against Charlton in the first half, but he grew into the game. In the start of the first half against Charlton, it looked like he was covering a lot for Ozturk. Like his mind was not just on his game, but on someone else's game alongside him. Baldwin came in, slotted perfectly alongside him, and I'm actually such impressed by how clever Baldwin was as well. His positioning, his anticipation, his reading of the game was just miles better than Ozturk's. It was really like breath of fresh air. And you can tell, we've heard like mixed opinions from Peterborough fans. Like some really didn't like him, others thought he was absolutely brilliant. On the signing today, he was really solid. Yesterday.
Feels like a day because he's not been in bed yet.
I had a few hours.
Did you get the train down? Did you?
I trained there and back. So
any trouble?
No, it was fine actually. It was great. It wasn't like Leeds.
No, because
Luton fans are all sound actually, really canny.
Did you enter through the housing estate?
I went through someone's backyard and garden and all that. It was weird. It's properly weird. And then afterwards, it was like the police were like, everyone go to the station, get on these buses. So they put like 4 or 5 free buses on for the Sunderland fans. Don't know why. I mean, maybe they're expecting trouble or what. I don't know. But we're on these buses for like half an hour. Ridiculous traffic. Like we might as well just walk. So halfway there, every single Sunderland fan on the bus has just kind of got the idea of like, we're sick of sitting on here. So you just seen like the 3 or 4 of them, like the back door just open as the buses are driving along, and people just like hopping out all the way along. And then the police like shit themselves, didn't know what to do. So it ended up just being like a Derby Day like escort sort of thing. It was weird. Just like all these people just walking through, just like fuck the buses, we're leaving them.
Phil, how did you get there? Were you in the press box? Obviously, did you?
We drove down, to be fair, there and back in the day, which was pretty brutal. So we left about 7:30 yesterday and got back at about midnight. But yeah, it was. I think everybody's kind of enjoying going to these kind of grounds.
Oh yeah.
I always love the grounds, and we were talking about Hearts before, and Tynecastle and Easter Road up there are the best for it, where you kind of just walking through the streets and all of a sudden the ground's just there, and all of a sudden you can hear it and you can smell it. And I think especially, the Premier League's great because of the quality of opposition and what have you, and that kind of negates from all these really soulless bowl grounds.
Yeah, definitely.
But when you're in the Championship and actually the quality of the football is not that good and the standard of the football is not that good, and you're just dredging into places like Reading, where it's like almost like a Lego stadium. There's no atmosphere. It really does grind you down. It's all the same, and it's all.
Yeah, it does.
So I think it's a lot easier in the summer when it's warm. But at the moment, it's quite nice to go to these grounds that have their own character, their own quirks. So it was good, and the Sunderland fans, I thought were fantastic, particularly because in the first half they were really patient. Luton came out promoted last year, real momentum. And they were good in the first half. Then they caused Sunderland a few problems, but I thought the team and the support were patient, and it was really encouraging.
Let's talk a little bit about the opening goal for Sunderland. So, Gav, do you want to take this one? Were you impressed? I mean, you've been a bit of not a critic of Madja, but you've been more on the Madja maybe isn't good enough. But
I'm more on the fence with him, yeah. But I mean, to his credit, he scored 2 really good goals so far this season. I just worry about him as a lone striker. I think he is improving. You can see with confidence he's getting better. I just think it's like a ticking time bomb with me. I don't know. I think once Wyke's fit, his place in the team is under question, isn't it? Yeah. What I do wonder, since obviously we're all well in the knowledge that he wants another striker, at least one, maybe 2, before the loan window ends. And I'm sure we'll get into that later. But knowing that, how many players does he want to play up front? We've got Watmore coming back. Sinclair's injured, but he'll be back within a month or so. Are we going to try and change things round? Because I mean, it's a lot of strikers to have with only one up front, and I wonder whether Madja's form figures into that.
Yeah, well, that mirrors the tactics from yesterday. Like we played 4-3-3, like 4-3-1 as we always do, but it was it was kind of not on the ball. Like Maguire was very central and very pushed very high. He was almost playing as a striker at times, Chris Maguire. He really realised that Maja needs support up there.
Yeah,
I think the thing about Maja is it kind of goes back to it depends how you play, because for me Maja almost had two performances yesterday. There was the one performance where he's got his back to goal and he's trying to deal with a long ball.
Yeah, I don't.
And with the greatest respect, he's hopeless at that.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
against these guys, he hasn't got a prayer. When the ball's in at his feet, he's actually at another level at these defenders. I mean, if you watch that first goal back, it's absolutely brilliant what he does. He sits on the shoulder, so the centre half drops in, and then he comes forward again, so the defender has to move, and then he goes. And if you watch the defender, he's just left stood there.
Yeah,
he
the
doesn't know what
movement's
to do.
as good as the finish.
His intelligence is so good, and actually with the ball at his feet, the way he brings Gooch and Maguire into play is tremendous. But you've got to play to that, and there's no point lumping long balls at him. There's no point trying to use him as an out ball like that because he can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is hopefully where, when White comes in, you've got those two options. And yesterday was definitely a day where you're looking at thinking, oh, you'd love Charlie White.
Yeah.
Just in those periods of the game where they were a little bit penned in, just someone who can make the ball stick. But I think Magic, to me, deserves his opportunity, and it's an interesting question. I know we're going to go on the transfer window in a little bit, but would you want to bring in someone else's prospect and develop them at the expense of Magic?
No.
You know, I think it's a really interesting question. We talk about players like James Wilson. Do you want to develop someone else's player and put Magic on the bench? I think he's earning the right to be considered as one of your three main strikers, especially once Sinclair's fit. So it's an interesting one to balance out, because I don't think you want to stunt his development and play somebody else's player. But
one other thing as well I would point out is that at youth level, like before he broke into the 23s, Maja played a lot off the left, so he didn't always play as the main striker. A lot of the time it was Nelson up front, Asoro one side, and Maja on the left hand side, and he actually played quite a bit as a number 10 as well.
I would mind him as 10.
Yeah, so I mean, it could well be that he doesn't play right up top, but maybe more in that Maguire role off the left, or even if Gooch isn't involved, maybe play him off the right hand side. I think you can be a bit more fluid with the players that we've got. That's going to be the good thing going forward. Not just with Maja, we're going to have options, and it's a shame we haven't got all these players available now. You know, we picked up 4 points with 9 injuries.
And that's kind of the point I was making. If you had everyone available now, would we be looking at it saying, you've got to go out and get a young lone striker in? I'm not sure you necessarily would. I think if you had everybody, I understand injuries happen, and that's why you've got to have a squad. But it's interesting, you know, I don't necessarily see this urgent need to bring in a young striker who might not be particularly proven. I think if you had Sinclair and White fit with Maja as well, with that flexibility we've talked about, I think you're fairly well stocked, especially once you bring Watmore into the equation.
Yeah.
You know, he's somebody else who, as you said, he can play through the middle, no problem. He can play off the right. So I think it's quite exciting in that sense. And in a way, I'm glad Maja's had this opportunity, because he was really unfortunate last year. He would have started the season, there's no doubt about it, before he got that knee injury.
Yeah.
And it was hard for him to come back. And I remember Chris Coleman saying he needs a pre-season because he lost that half of pre-season, and he was coming back in the team, and it was hard for him. So I'm really glad, actually, the way things have worked out, he's had an opportunity, because you've seen already at St Mirren against Charlton, he catches goalkeepers off guard. His finishing is so instinctive. We've seen him when he takes that shot so early and the goalkeeper doesn't expect it. I think he's a really exciting talent. I've got massive hopes for him, and I think, it's a hard ask for him to play up front on his own in a game like that, but at the end of the day, he still found a way to got his goal, which is very exciting.
The thing that excites me about Maja is the fact that he has the things that are harder to train already. He's got that touch. He's brilliant with the ball under his head. Like, anywhere chest low, he'll control it and he will beat the defender. And as you say, his instinctive finishing, they're the things that you can't actually train. And with time, with games, with, you know, being in and around the squad, he should hopefully improve into being a player capable of leading the line eventually.
And he's smart, because when other players were looking for a move, he saw an opportunity. Yeah. He looked at it and thought, actually, hang on, Sunderland don't have any strikers. There's a chance for me here to start pre-season and take an opportunity. And I think if you ask people at Sunderland, that's one of the things they'll tell you about Maja is that, he's got all the talent. Technically, he's great. He's been at Man City, no problem. But he's a smart kid, and he's got a very good temperament, and he's grounded as well. That's the kind of player you want to be developing, I think. So he's got a lot to learn, but he's a really, really exciting talent.
Like, I don't like comparing him to Asoro, because they're completely different players, but it kind of sometimes got to, because they both broke through the youth team at the same time, both broke through in the first team at the same time. And if you look, like, Asoro's obviously went in the summer now. Maja's more intelligent for staying, because I think Marge is going to basically start more than Asora was going to. He's going to develop more as a player this season than Asora will. But I think Marge is just more intelligent on the pitch as well. I think over the last 4 or 5 years, he's the most intelligent prospect we've brought through in terms of like his ability on the ball and his ability to read the game. His reading the game is fantastic for lads when he just turned 19 this year. Now that's Bali Mumba similar as well. The intelligence that those two have got, like not just their ability on the ball, but the intelligence, the mindfulness of being on the pitch, their awareness is really what sets them apart from a lot of prospects in recent years.
Talk a little bit about Bali Mumba. He maybe not as impressive yesterday, although I don't want to say that as a negative.
He still played well. I mean, Luton are a very League One team. Like they were too good for League Two last season. They showed yesterday just how good they can be, but they kind of just shithouse the way to a result at times. Like, they were very solid defensively. They didn't have too much to do and like didn't really trouble Louvens and Baldwin that much, as opposed to like getting in behind like Charlton did. But they did try and outpower us a lot. James Collins and Hilton up top, two big lads, and they tried to just put pressure onto us. And the midfield was very similar. I think it was Pelly Ruddock who basically controlled the game. Him and Lee alongside him were excellent.
I thought the big difference between Sunderland and Luton yesterday was Luton's sort of continuity. You could tell, so they played that kind of diamond system, which you don't see very often.
Yeah.
But what really struck me was how well the midfielders understood it, how well they understood when one person went, the other had to stay. That rotation was really, really good. Sunderland don't have that for obvious reasons. Max Power had one training session before he played yesterday. So I thought Luton were able to control periods of the game because just they had that understanding of each other's games, and that's something that's just going to take time with Sunderland. I thought Barley did fine. He didn't look like a 16-year-old out of his depth or struggling physically. I just thought he had maybe a slightly quieter game, but I tell you what, he didn't misplace a pass for 50 minutes either. He's in there on merit, which is just incredible, really.
Yeah. I can see why Ross made the sub he did, taking Mumba off and taking Katz on with about half an hour left. Like Mumba was kind of dominated out of the game by their midfield, be it physically or not. And I can see why he wanted to try and shore things up with Cattermole. I'm just not quite sure if it was the right person to bring on, or would he even never brought him on at all if McGeoch was fit.
Well, we'll leave Cattermole. There is a section for Cattermole, so I don't want to talk too much about him. But I do want to talk a little bit about Max Power. I mean, lots of fans might not have seen the game yesterday, so I don't know.
It's good.
Yeah,
Nicholas? Yeah, he's really good. I prefer him. I agree with Phil. I think he'd be better further up the pitch, and I prefer him in a role higher up the pitch. But Ross has obviously realised that we missed that against Charlton. We missed that ball-winning midfielder. We didn't really think there was quite a few times where Lyle Taylor and Colin Grant were either one was pushing on very deep, one was pushing on very far, and the other one kept coming deep to the ball. So we're vertically splitting our centre backs a lot, and that's why Louvens and Nosturk were caught up positionally so often because they didn't know what to do. They never really played together very often with that verticality. Obviously, and Grant dropped deep quite a lot, like he did for the run up to the penalty, and there was just nobody really screening the defence. Power's a proper central midfielder. He's not just like a ball winner. I kind of described him as a jack of all trades, but master of none. He just followed the ball around and just kind of played that little quarterback role, just passing it off and continuing. Now, I prefer McGeoch in that role, and I think he will play that role. And Power will step on to a higher position in the pitch. But in his debut, I thought he was really impressive.
Phil, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. He was parachuted in and asked to do a job that's not natural to him. There's no way he's a defensive midfielder. Yeah. He's got a lot of energy. He likes to make a contribution in the final third, but it was needs must. And he's straight into the team, and inside the first 10 minutes he's directing. He's telling Barley Mumba where he wants him, he's telling Honeyman where he wants him, he's telling the fullbacks where he wants him. And I just think that's a big tick in the box for me, that you've got someone coming to the team, he's had one training session, the manager's looked at him and thought, yeah, I'm just going to throw him straight in. Yeah. And he's just gone in there, and he's not looked like someone who's just been thrown in. Like I say, I definitely think he's someone who'll play further up once McGeoch comes in. But then you'll then have a midfield three potentially of McGeoch, Power and Honeyman, with Barley Mumba and Ethan Robson sort of challenging for a spot, and that looks really, really strong to me.
And O'Neill as well.
I know, yeah, absolutely. Who I've completely forgotten about, and that's actually a big positive as well, because you can give someone like O'Neill the chance to develop and the chance to get his feet under the table and the chance to learn about the manager, because I think that's been the big thing with him. I think Wickham's style of play is obviously very, very, very different, and I think Jack Ross has probably been a little bit surprised by how different what O'Neill is used to in terms of training and tactics. I think there's been a little bit of we're quite a way apart in how we're used to doing things, but having Max Power now just gives you a little bit of time for O'Neill to get settled, and then hopefully we'll see what he's good at, which is getting about the pitch and breaking up play. So that to me looks an unbelievably strong area of the pitch now.
Yeah, it does.
Another player I wanted to discuss was Oviedo. He impressed everyone when he came on the opening day. Was he as impressive yesterday?
I wouldn't say no, because the impact he had in the game last week was a match-winning performance, really, where I think he kind of just sat in there and did a job. This week, nothing too spectacular, but then again, it was a different type of game, wasn't it? It was last week. He came on, played wing back when we really needed to get back in the game, and we did. This week, it was a little bit more different because of the way Luton play mainly. What I'll be interested to see now, I'm not convinced that he will leave. I just struggle with the idea of anyone paying his wages. Maybe he leaves in a similar sort of circumstances as Kone, where he has to forego some of those wages to leave. But I don't know whether he will. And what I'm interested in seeing is when Reece James is fit, who we then go with, really. Once James is fit, maybe gets a couple of sub appearances under his belt, maybe a couple under 23s games, who is then the first choice left back? Because it must be difficult for Ross. That I know you probably can see that Oviedo is a good guy and he's on a lot of money, but he must struggle with morally who he plays, whether he plays him. Same probably with Cattermole as well.
It's a massive issue. I mean, sometimes we make the mistake of treating football different to just normal life, but if you imagine in your office or wherever you work, there's a guy doing the same job as you who's maybe a little bit better than you, but not loads better than you, on 10 times the money. I mean, you'd be festered. It would drive you up the wall. It'd be horrendous. And football is a bit different to other areas of life, but in a lot of ways it's not. And that is a massive challenge, and it's a massive test of Jack Ross's man management skills. I mean, in terms of yesterday, Oviedo and Adam Matthews on the other flank just had to park the best side of their game. They couldn't get forward. They couldn't leave space. There was two big centre forwards. They had to stay tight to the centre backs. So it wasn't a game where they really were able to show what they were made of. But actually, in a way, that's credit to Oviedo that he did knuckle in and actually he didn't go missing. He didn't get stuck up the pitch like you used to see with Van Aanholt. He was quite disciplined, and I suppose that's that's what he should do. He gets paid enough for it. But even so, it's not always the case.
Like yesterday was very attritional, the game. I think that's how Luton are going to play. I think they're going to force... it's not nice to say about Luton, it's a bit arrogant, but they're going to force teams to play in their style. So we try to pass it around them a lot. We try to play it inside, and they kind of forced us to just go up against them because the way they are, because they're so solid and they're so powerful. And it's nice to see Oviedo kind of adapt to League One football like that. You might think that he doesn't want to get his roll his sleeves up and get mucked in, but he wasn't as influential going forward. But there's no complaints about his performance whatsoever. He was just really solid. And with James as well, I'm worried about Reece James. He's played 45 minutes at Darlington and he's crocked ever since. And he's been injury prone for a few years at Wigan as well. We've got 9 injuries right now, and a lot of them don't worry myself. Like McGeady's is literally a freak accident while on holiday. McGee's is because of the state of the pitch and the conditions at Middlesbrough. It's not big. There's not big niggles that I'm too worried about. Apart from Reece James, that he only played 45 minutes at Darlow, and he's not been seen since. He's back in training now. But say if Oviedo does go, I think we might have to bring 2 left backs in if his injury problems do continue.
Another couple of players I just want to bring up before we move on to Cattermole. Lyndon Gooch, good assist again yesterday. We're thinking he's going to be the diamond for this year.
Yeah,
absolutely. He's ever since he came back into that team towards the back end of last season on the right wing, he just looks like a completely different player. I mean, we've always kind of seen him as a number 10 kind of player. He's on the wing. He's just got the fullback on toast every time. He looks like he could be Sunderland's best player this year in a lot of ways. It's very difficult to defend against. He's strong, quick, and that pass on his wrong foot is just, for the first goal, is absolutely outstanding. It's just I'm loving watching him play at the moment. Very exciting.
I like the 1-2 as well. It's nice to see how he played off, didn't he, and then followed his run round, which I thought was really good.
Well, the whole goal, if you watch it through, there's at least 4 opportunities for a player just to go and just lump it and just actually, I'm going to take the easy option, just pump it into the channel. There's at least 4 chances for them to do that, but they don't. And it's nice to see them get the rewards for that. And I mean, it's absolutely superb goal.
Honeyman could have had a penalty. probably should have
had it, but Stonewall.
Blatant.
Absolutely
I
Stonewall.
mean, the club Twitter account tweeted a clip of it out today, asking people, is this a penalty? Obviously they know it is. But
we've got a photo of it. I'll tweet it to Roker Report later. It's the guy's just got his arm on both shoulders. It's just an absolute Stonewall penalty. Honeyman made 2 massive defensive interceptions in the second half. Broke up a couple of really, really, really dangerous counter-attacks. I thought he did a lot of the dirty work yesterday. Which need to be done.
What do you think about the criticism he gets? Because we get told that we're pro Honeyman in quotation marks and we're too nice about him. But I don't understand why people are so negative. I mean, can you understand why people don't rate him?
George is one of the most passionate people about Sunderland I've ever spoken to. He scores goals. He doesn't always look the flashiest player on the pitch, but he finds a way of getting the ball in the back of the net. He runs all day. Positionally, he's really disciplined. I'm a huge fan of George Honeyman's. Really rate him. I'm thrilled he's got the captain's armband, and I'm thrilled he's still here.
Why do you think people don't rate him? Like, I mean, I hear people say that he's just not good, but I never hear why he's not good. I never ever hear anybody pinpoint, well, it's this area of his game or it's this area.
I've had many arguments with people about this, and none of them seem to be able to give a reasoned explanation to me why. I totally take someone's opinion on board, and they're well entitled to think whatever they want about a certain player, but I don't see it. I watch Sunderland every single week, and I don't see the issue. I just think he's got a bit of everything, but the most important thing, and I've noticed this ever since I can remember watching Honeyman play pre-season games when we had that couple of games at Darlington. I think it was Bishop Auckland, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Where we played Darlington, we played the Spanish team Betis, and we played Udinese, and I think Honeyman featured across all 3 under Poirier, and I think he must have only been 18 or something at the time, and even then he was dropping in deep, always wanted the ball, and I was thinking, God, for an 18-year-old, he's quite lively, like, and those sort of qualities, he's been able to develop them. The older he's got, I think maybe people view him differently to, say, Mumba, because Mumba's 16. Honeyman had to wait till he was 22 to get a proper chance in the first team. Didn't really go anywhere on loan, so it's not as if you can back your argument up with, he went. I know he went to Gateshead, but it was only a month. He's not. It's not as if he went somewhere for 6 months and did really well. And people tend to give players who do that the more benefit of the doubt, to be honest.
I think I suppose there's whether he's a good player or not. It's kind of an objective thing, isn't it? But
yeah.
the one criticism or the one thing I've seen on social media and what have you that is absolutely factually bang out is this: when he got the captaincy and people saying, surely he can't be leadership material. He is one of the strongest and the loudest voices in that dressing room, and he was last year as well. Absolutely. When really the games he had under his belt, he had no right to be, but he was, and he's very, very popular, and he's respected as well because he trains harder than anybody else, and he's won the respect, I think, of his teammates and the managers that way. I think I'm thrilled he's captain. I'm really pleased he's still here.
I think Honeyman's year that he came through in the academy as well, they suffered a little bit from lack of development. Not many of them got sent out on loan. Many of them got first team opportunities. He only got his until he was 22. Watford was his first start. John Egan, Andrew Cartwright, Tommy Robson, Mika Mandron, like all these players, Scott Harrison. These are all players who were in Honeyman's year. He's a couple of years older than Gooch. You need to remember this. And these all went. They're all like Colchester. I mean, Egan's obviously made a career of himself since. But all the players suffered from the academy because there was stunted development. That was when Borley left, Stockdale took over. He really started taking over the academy. There was quite a lot of transition going on at the time, and because of that, he's had to develop late. A lot of people don't really have, like I say, they don't have the patience that they did for Mumba because he's older, because sometimes they don't realise that he's an academy graduate, he's a young lad, and a massive Sunderland fan. But one time I had an argument with one of my mates who said that he didn't like Honeyman in the 10 role because he thought he wasn't really a number 10. He wasn't creative enough to be a number 10. He wasn't sort of player who's going to take the ball to the game high up as an advanced playmaker and pass it off. Well, it's because Honeyman's not an advanced playmaker. He doesn't play like that under Ross in that role. He's more of an attacking midfielder. He's very vertical. The only time I've ever seen him do that was 3-0 win over Hull, when he was going out wide, going around, picking the ball, dictating play. That's not how we're playing under Ross. The dictating of the play is from deeper. Max Power was doing it yesterday. McGeek's been doing it all pre-season. His role is in there as like an old school attacking midfielder, number 10, who's also got a lot of responsibility on his shoulders to drop deep. People who say he goes missing in games, I just don't understand them. Don't watch the game. He's not all. I don't get it. He's not. To be missing in games doesn't mean that you're on the ball all the time, looking where to play, where to go. His movement off the ball is fantastic. The amount of work he does off the ball in defensive positions is unbelievable for a number 10. And you just don't see that often.
See? Well, that point argued very well. Joe 21 is good. We're going to move from one captain to another. So, well, former captain, Lee Cattermole. So, a lot of discussion about him yesterday. I think I was one of the most vocal people on Twitter about it. Like the fact that he came on and was at fault for the goal. But question here from Michael Smith. Were you surprised to see Cattermole involved? And do you think he'll still be here once the window shuts?
I think he probably will still be here when the window shuts. I find it very hard to see anyone paying his wages. Lee's a North East lad. His family's up here. He's settled up here. I think he's only going to move. He said, I don't think it's a situation like Kone, where Kone, I think, would make sacrifices to go and play in France and rebuild his career. I'd be surprised if Lee did that. I think he's still settled in the North East. So I find it very hard. I think it'll be the hardest one to move on, and I think the new regime knew that when they came in. I think they could see that coming from like quite a long way off. So yeah, I think he will still be here. In regards to the question about yesterday, I don't think he was the reason Sunderland lost the game. I think drew the game. Yeah, I'm used to that clearly. But I think that he looked rusty. I thought he looked rusty. He looked like someone who hadn't played a lot of minutes. The goal I couldn't actually see because there was a massive pillar in the way. So I wouldn't want to dish out blame for that. But I think it's a difficult one. My instinct has always been not to involve him, for the same logic that I thought was the right time for John O'Shea to leave in the summer, even though I've always liked John O'Shea and think he was a decent player. I just think it's a part of Sunderland's history that everybody wants to move on from. And I think that hangover's still there, and you can see that yesterday. And I do think Lee Cattermole gets stronger criticism for making errors than other players will. And I understand that. It's because of the past few years. It's because of the money he's earning. And I think that's natural. And that's why my instinct is that he shouldn't be involved, because I think it's just creating a problem that isn't necessary. The flip side of that is that Jack Ross's big thing is it's all about consistent behaviour. And he doesn't want to make Lee Cattermole different to anyone else in his squad. So it's important to Jack Ross that if Lee Cattermole is one of the better midfielders in training, in his application and his performances, he's got to be involved, because I think he's determined that he won't have someone who's treated differently because of what's happened in previous seasons. But obviously it's much harder for supporters and journalists to see it that way because we've suffered through that period. So my instinct is very much I'd rather he wasn't involved for that reason. I think it's better for everyone to have a clean start. But I think Jack Ross has to be a lot more pragmatic about it, and I think the club are going to have to be a lot more pragmatic about it, because I think it's going to be very, very, very difficult to shift him.
Do you think one of the things that confused me was the fact that he wasn't involved last week and yet was brought in this week, and I just didn't understand why last week he wasn't deemed good enough, even though
I think he was the manager was asked about it, wasn't he? Didn't he put down to tactical reasons?
Yeah, he said what he said is he said that I've said the league will take it week by week. I was surprised because when he wasn't on the bench on the opening day of the season, that didn't surprise me, because I thought Lee's not going to be involved. So I was surprised when he was on the bench yesterday, and it's a very interesting point. How can you be not good enough one week and good enough the next? Further down the road, once McGeoch and Robson are back, I think Lee will drop out of the squad. I really do.
Definitely.
McGeoch's probably the key player. Jack Ross loves Ethan Robson. He watched Sunderland before he came into the job, and straight away liked the look of him from the Wolves game and some of the other appearances. So I think Ethan Robson's going to push, and we all know how much he rates Wally Mumba. So it's interesting. Jack Ross has always said we'll take it week by week, and I think there's going to be more weeks where he's not involved than where he is.
It's interesting, the central midfield. I mean, you talked about the amount of players we have there. The actual depth that we have in that position now, when Robson gets back and McGeoch gets back, is actually frightening. It's better than the depth I had last year.
Yeah, and I think it's good to have those options. I'm still a little bit disappointed we don't have it. I know it feels like we say this every single week, but someone with a bit of height and strength and just someone in the mould of Alfred Ndai would be nice.
But it's
someone that size.
George Evans was 6 foot odd, wasn't he? And when they moved for him, it was one of those you looked at, and I know he's actually quite a technical midfielder, but it was one of those where you looked at and you thought, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because he's played centre half, he's got a bit of height, he'll help you out with set pieces. So it was strange that when that didn't go through, the player that came in was Luke O'Nien, who's clearly very promising, but it's like he seems to me like a very similar player to Honeyman in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I have been a little bit surprised by the direction they've gone in, having not got George Evans in, because I totally agree. I think set pieces is going to be an issue, particularly if, as you inevitably will, you're not going to get 46 games out of Glenn Loovens. So there's going to be games where he's not going to play, and you take him out the side and you think defensively, crosses in the box, set pieces, it's still one of my big worries about the squad.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think there's any doubt that they are done now in central midfield. You're not going to add anybody else to that. So that's going to be one of the interesting things to watch as the season develops, because that is one of the departments where you look and go, you still worry a little bit about the height and the physicality in there.
Back to Cattermole, Liam Connolly asks why bring him on before 09, and I think that was something that the Twitter universe were surprised about, that Cattermole came on before 09.
I think it was trying to get into Jack Ross's head. You'd imagine it was an experience thing. It was
Definitely.
Sunderland was suffering at that point. They'd gone into half time in a fantastic position, and you thought, great, let's go on and kick on. They came out in the second half and they were suffering, and I think Ross thought Cattermole might just steady things down a bit. I don't think he necessarily did. I think looking back, I don't think it was the right call, but I can kind of see why he made it. He obviously thought, I'll get Lee's intelligence, his experience in there. It might just settle Sunderland down a bit, as it didn't quite come off. But I imagine that's why he made that decision.
You see, for me, I looked at it now in particular, and I think, well, 09 will have actually played against Luton in them sort of games all the time, them hard away games in League 1, League 2, and Cattermole's never ever played in that. So that's why I thought 09 might have made more sense.
If you look at 09 as well, I think 09's a little bit... He reminds me of when Ethan Robson first came in the team. So when Robson first came in the team, I think his debut was against Villa away in a Coleman's first game last season. And he was a bit of... I like the look of Robson when he first came in. I really like him now, but he was a bit of a deer in headlights. Like, you a little bit overawed. I think that's the same with 09. 09 only moved out of his parents' house when he moved to Sunderland. Like, he may be 6 years older than Ballymumba, but he's just literally moved out. He's... that whole the whole thing that went viral of him ironing on the night before he finalised his transfer, he's a bit of a mammy's boy like that, and he's I think the move from the size of club from Wickham to Sunderland, the move from the style of football, like Phil mentioned, from what Wickham played, the direct stuff, getting supported by probably the biggest centre midfielder in League 2 and definitely the biggest player in English football in Adebayo Akinfenwa. Now, and then on the first game, he was expected to be the more experienced, more powerful midfielder out there too with Ballymumba, and I think maybe the kind of cultural change, if you could say it's a cultural change or lifestyle change or whatever, maybe overawed him a little bit.
Well, it is. I mean, if I think about when I moved out of for university, the first month was a mess.
Yeah,
just absolute mess. I lived off sandwiches because I couldn't cook. And you went to Edinburgh, were you the same? How were you for your first month?
Bolognese every single night.
So yeah,
Bolognese is just the ultimate. When you first go to university, it's simple: bit of mince, bit of tomato, bit of basil, and you can get
basil.
Yeah, cheap stuff from Tesco, unbelievable, and you can reheat it 3 nights in a row as well. Pasta, dirt cheap. Bolognese. If Luton 9's listening, he needs some tips for surviving his first month away.
We ate off saucepans for 6 weeks. Didn't have a single plate. Come on.
But the thing is, that's the point, isn't it? When you move out for the first time at them sort of ages, it is actually difficult. Mm-hmm. It's not easy.
Ballymumba remembers getting protected a lot by the academy. I think Paul Reed had that really interesting Twitter article midweek, Twitter conversation with fans, telling people about how the academy's going. And he was saying he wants the younger players to be protected. He wants them at the academy too, even when the lads are on loan, like Brotherton. He wants them back at the academy training all the time. Bally still lives in the Bine and Shields with his man there. He's just going back to Heart and school, with his mates and that. To him, it's kind of probably a little bit too surreal. It maybe hasn't hit him.
I think the primary thing with 09 at the moment is, and it's not a criticism of him as a player at all, I just don't think Jack Ross quite trusts him yet to carry out how he wants to play. And I don't think Luke 09 yet is completely comfortable carrying out what Jack Ross wants. Yeah. And that's not a slight on the player. Jack Ross has signed him because he thinks he's going to be brilliant. And I think he will have an impact, but at the moment, he maybe just doesn't have that trust, and he maybe just felt that Lee Cattermole, and that is such a divisive player, I understand, but he maybe just thought, actually, for what I need at this moment, I feel a bit more confident that I can get my message through to Cattermole and he can go and do it. He might not do it again because it didn't really work. And that's going to be part of it for Jack Ross as well. He's learning about these players as well. That's the other thing.
I think that's why Power was brought in so quickly. Because we apparently spoke to Everton hardly before the whole thing was finalised. That's why it was Everton. Bloody Everton. Wigan. Sorry.
What?
Wigan.
Everton? It was Everton? This is new.
It was such a little time before first contact. He said that he was literally sitting watching Netflix the night before and then was Paul Cook was Max have agreed a deal for Sunderland. He was oh shit, what? The next day he's signing for, we're only just only just missed the 5 p.m. deadline. I think that's probably because of Ross being maybe a little bit disappointed about O'Nien's impact now. Long term, I think he's going to be a player. He's going to be a real player. He looks talented. He looks tired. Even when he didn't play too great against 45 minutes against Charlton, he didn't put a foot wrong or anything.
Anyone could have been hooked. Yeah. And that's important to remember. O'Nien was the one who got hooked.
Definitely.
He's got the captain's armband. He's played all the way through pre-season, so it was a sensible decision.
Yeah.
But to look back and say, he was well out of his depth, it's not really the case. Sunderland were just poor, and they had to get a centre midfielder out there, and he was the obvious one to take.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like a big issue. I think he will get involved, and I think he'll be a good player. It might just take a few more weeks on the training ground. I think it's just as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Elliot Embleton. He's in central midfield option. We haven't actually spoke about him yet. What do we see him going out on loan? Maybe
I do. Yeah,
the amount of options we've got makes sense.
I think the player probably does as well. I think he probably looks at that situation and thinks I'd probably benefit from 6 months somewhere.
But where? He's a League One player, I would say.
Possibly, yeah. I think him and the two who the three I would definitely like to see get a loan. Embleton's one, Luke Molyneux's another. Maybe when McGeady's fit again, maybe you can then look at moving Molyneux out and Nelson, because I think they're all players who can really cut it in the Football League, but they just need to go and get games. Nelson, for me, he's had a good spell up in Scotland, so now I would look at, can we get him into League 2? Can he score 10, 15 goals this year in League 2? And if he does, then you're looking, maybe we can get him involved. I think those are the three, and Embleton's definitely one that I would be really, really keen to see get a loan move.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's above League 2. I think 6 months playing men's football will do a lot for him, because he's physically very small, but you don't play for England if you're not a good player, so he needs to be getting games. I think the mistake we don't want to make now with this new regime and obviously building from the ground up, we don't need to make the same mistake we did with players like Honeyman, where we didn't give them enough chances to go out and get loan experience. And I think Embleton, you put him in any team in League 2 and he'll improve the midfield. It's about giving them that chance to do it. And I'm sure there's plenty of teams would take an England under-19s international off you for 6 months.
Yeah, I'd agree. So you probably need McGee and Robson to be fit again before you'd be comfortable sending them out. But once that's
we've got a few weeks, haven't we? And I think you maybe get a better idea of what's going on after the game on Thursday, because I've got a feeling Ross might use that as a chance to give players who haven't been getting in, as much game time in the first 2 matches, giving them a chance to show what they can do against good opposition.
We're going to talk a little bit about transfers. So obviously deadline semi-closed on Thursday. Technically isn't closed. It's a bit of a weird one, isn't it, now? Because they've
got to look at that again, haven't they? I think it's stupid.
It was a complete waste of time. And it wasn't until like the couple of weeks running up to this deadline day that you actually start to look at it and go, well, this just isn't a deadline day at all. And the whole thing obviously kicks down because now that the Premier League's shut, the Championship clubs know they can't loan players, can't get players in, and they're now looking at it's going to like the chain's going to kick down, and so now Championship teams are going to start moving players out, and that's when League One players can act. So it's just the biggest. It's a bit of a farce, really. You need to do one or the other.
It's kind of changed the whole fabric of the transfer window for lower league clubs as well. A lot of lower league clubs, you see youngsters going on loan very early. They'll get these youngsters on loan so they can bed them into the team, and they're not spending any money on them barely. The bigger teams will probably pay all the wages, pay all their accommodation costs and everything. So they've got a body in early for as little expense as possible. So usually you'll see them in early. This time there's not many younger players going out on loan to Football League clubs as early. I think there's a few like Ben Woodburn, Sheffield United, but there's not too many, so they're all available now. I think that's because of this half deadline, this soft deadline that they've had.
I'm going to be really interested to see if there ends up being a load of new Ricky Alvarez's where people do the loan to buy thing.
Yeah,
and then they have an absolutely terrible 3 months and they're like, oh, actually no, we're not going to buy him.
Maybe. Any Football League club with sense is going to do what we've done with Power. Just get him on loan till January and say we're going to buy him in January.
Maybe we'll no longer be the only club who does an Alvarez. Maybe that stain could be lifted.
That would be nice. We can bond with the fans of the other clubs.
I think the only reason this a month exists, I think it was Greg Clark, the head of the FA, used to be head of the EFL, so he was worried that EFL clubs might not be able to adapt as well to the earlier deadline because they don't have much money as Premier League clubs. So he wanted to put this as a safety net, which it's a nice idea, but it's just stupid.
But if it continues next year, think that's just stupid. I
I
can
don't
see
think
this
it will.
year.
I don't think it will.
They shouldn't have
This
done the
will be
window
last.
this year because of the World Cup. I don't know why they didn't wait till next
I
summer.
honestly think it was the right thing to do, but it was the wrong time to do it.
Yeah,
And
next
it's
summer.
interesting. FIFA actually are now introducing where all the leagues have got to shut their window the day before it closes. So although Spain and Italy will have another week, it will be much closer. And actually, I think that's really good. I think it's really positive that the window shuts before your season starts. But this year was just an absolutely ridiculous time to do it. And actually, it was really refreshing. I know wasn't really a deadline day, but going into a Sunderland deadline day with Sunderland, and actually they don't need, like, you're not going, oh my God, if we don't get 4 quality players in, then we're stuffed. It was quite refreshing that actually, by and large, most things were in place.
Yeah.
And we were kind of looking at going, if we get something like Max Power, brilliant. If not, we'll be okay. And I think the manager and the new owners and the recruitment team deserve a lot of credit for that, because to be more prepared than we have been in previous windows, despite having to build a new squad, that's actually a really, really, really impressive achievement. And to have now 2 weeks in the window where if we get somebody else in, great. If not the end of the world. If you'd said to me they'd be in that place at the start of the summer, I would have been really impressed.
It slowly came together, didn't it? Because initially, I remember when the new owners came in and were like, yes, we've got a big budget, we're going to buy loads of players. And then it just didn't happen for a while. And then slowly but surely, we just kept picking up 1-2 players
I think
every week.
the two for me were McLaughlin and McGeoch, because they were good players.
Yeah, they are.
Good players. All right, they didn't spend money on them. When those two came in, you just thought, because then, the manager can bring good players in. He can sell the club to them. The owners can bring good players in. So that was the point where I thought, it's going to take a lot of time. But actually,
McGeoch was a real coup as well, not just like for a club of our size, but to get, like, not for our size, but a club in our league, should I say. But to turn down like 2 championship clubs, reportedly, to come forward shows that we've still got a pull.
Didn't he?
I think, it goes back to what we were talking to earlier about Madge's intelligence. And again, that McGeoch made this move now shows the kind of intelligence that a lot of these players coming in the club have. Because McGeoch could have gone to the championship this year, definitely. But he would have gone into a team near the bottom because people weren't sure about him because he's come from Scotland. So he would have gone into a team near the bottom that doesn't play with the ball, where it's all over your head and you're struggling, you don't get a chance to shine, and then suddenly all the English clubs go, oh, you can't cut it. He's come down 1 division, but he's playing a team that's going to suit him, where he's going to be the main man, where he can shine. And suddenly, Sunderland or otherwise, his career in England opens up for him. And I just think it's really encouraging that we're getting in players who are seeing it that way. And it's probably the same with McLaughlin as well.
I agree, but it's quite interesting because the reaction from Scotland on the transfer wasn't that great. I've seen a lot of Scottish football pundits and fans really criticising McGeoch, because he's the only really player who Scotland have got now with experience of a decent age who's got his ability as a deep line playmaker with the ball at foot. They've got young players like McTominay who are coming through who are really talented, but they're not there now. So a lot of Scottish fans and pundits were criticising, well, why is he going down to League One? Why is McGeoch going down to League One when we need him ready for the national team now?
But that's kind of my point, is that they know he's good enough to play at a good football team in the Championship.
Yeah, I took that as great for us.
But English clubs maybe didn't know that and weren't sure about that. So for that, Dale McGeoch is not a League One player. No. Absolutely no way. But I don't think he would have been able to find a club worthy of his talents in the Championship. I don't think they would have taken a punt on him.
Obviously, Scotland, the best team in League One.
Yeah, and the kind of similar thing was Ozturma from Walsall going to Bolton. You look at that and think, what? As one of the most talented playmakers in League One, and he's going to a long ball team in the Championship. So I just think I think McGeoch's made a great decision for his career, even just looking past from a Sunderland perspective. And I can't. Some people might not have really seen him because they didn't see much of pre-season. I can't wait for Sunderland fans to watch him because we've not had a midfielder like that in years. He's what Darren Gibson should have been, but for all sorts of reasons wasn't. We haven't had a player who can pass like him for so long, who can control the tempo of the game. It's really exciting to have what we've had in the first 2 games, to then be bringing potentially your best player back in.
I think he's going to complement with Power really well as well. The different players, completely different players. And I know Power was kind of shoehorned into McGeoch's role yesterday, but once he's pushed further forward, the two are going to complement each other really strongly. And we spoke to a Wigan fan on the site for an interview about Max Power and what to expect, and he was saying he's a little bit worried about how he would have done the Championship last time. When the Championship he struggled, but he was actually looking forward to seeing him this year with such a good season off the back of last season on. And he's saying he's for him one of the best midfielders in League One. Yeah. So the two together are really exciting. Just
to go back on another point as well was with players coming back. I mean, you talk about McGeoch being our best player potentially coming back in. You just think of the quality player we have got to come back. McGeady should comfortably be the most creative midfielder in this league if he's motivated. Duncan Watmore was playing with a lot of the players who just got England to a World Cup semi-final not long ago. You know what I mean? He stays fit, and he's a top Championship player, not a League One player. Charlie White was signed to be our main striker. We haven't seen him kick a ball yet, but he's coming back in. And you look at that, and then you think of how we've already started, and it's exciting, to be honest. I think we've got a lot more depth than people realise. It's just because of the injuries that it maybe masks over it a little bit. I mean, you look at our bench on Saturday, and you can see where we're struggling for options, which is why we brought on 09 for Madja, for instance.
What says it all about Sunderland for me is that yesterday we got down to King's Cross, walked into St Pancras, waiting for the train to Luton. Some guy comes over and he's like, "Oh, Sunderland." He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, but he's playing today." Luton. He's like, "Canal, Luton are in the Premier League." Like, he just immediately assumed we were in the Premier League. Like, I was like, "Oh, mate, we're in League One now."
It's more about him, to be fair. Like,
He's very drunk or very stupid. Where do we need to strengthen then? I mean, if we ended the window right now without bringing in another player, is that a disaster?
And I think it's potentially a controversial opinion. I'm not 100% sure we definitely need anybody else. I think another striker would be nice, but I think it's a luxury.
What about a centre back? I think we need a centre back, mate.
Do you? With Flanagan as well coming back?
I just think the fact that Louvens is in his mid-30s, the fact that obviously we've not seen he's injured at the minute, Flanagan, but I just think having 5 might make more sense, especially too if he does end up playing 3 maybe at the back occasionally.
But then it's difficult, isn't it? Because you're going to struggle to loan a centre back if he's going to be one of 5, because clubs aren't going to want to give it to you. So how do you get a player who's actually going to improve you in those conditions? Is difficult. I know. You're probably right, and I think centre halves is one of the positions where yesterday I think probably allayed some of our concerns, but I think we've all had them.
It's a shame we don't have a academy product who could act as the 5th centre back. It's a shame we don't seem to have any that stand out to play.
He did give a few chances to Brandon Taylor in pre-season. I don't know how we thought about him.
I don't think he's anywhere near ready.
No, he's only just broken the under 23s, to be fair to him.
Yeah. That's the thing. Both under 23 centre backs, like, they're both quite young. Him and Alex Story.
Yeah. But I mean, it's not that long till January. I think we might be able to get by with what we've got in that position till then. Flanagan is a player who I was actually quite impressed with in pre-season.
I really like him.
I didn't have any expectations for him. I just thought, again, what you said about talking opposition fans, we spoke to the guy from the Burton Mail when Flanagan signed. And the impression I got from that was that he's all right. He's a bit of a Darren Williams. Plays
exactly what I say that.
Plays 3 or 4 positions for you, does a job. And I was a bit underwhelmed, if I'm honest, but I didn't really. I'm one of these that I'll always give a player a chance before making an opinion on them. I hate it when I see other fans putting a player down who they've never seen kick a ball for Sunderland. I hate that. So I was willing to give him a chance, obviously, in pre-season. I thought he looked really good. I think he would have started the Charlton game if he'd been fit.
Oh, he would have started ahead of Oztek 100%.
He was. I mean, I've seen him quite a bit in pre-season, but I thought that 45 minutes against Middlesbrough, he was our best player when he moved into midfield.
When he was in midfield, it was his best performance. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just think he's really worked hard in pre-season to nail a place down. So I wouldn't worry too much. The thing is, we're kind of at the back of your mind. You've always got this thing about Sunderland and injuries, because it's always a problem for us every season. We have key players missing through injury, and we can't get a settled team, and we can't get our best team out as much as we'd like. So that's probably playing at the back of a lot of people's mind, maybe yours, Connor. I don't know, that if players can't stay fit, it might be a problem for us, but I think I've got my fingers crossed. I just think certain players like Flanagan, little knocks and stuff, maybe they'll get over that, and once we're in the swing of things, we'll have a nice big squad to pick from.
I've only got a main worry about Reece James.
Yeah.
I've got a little bit of a back of my mind about McGear because of his past, but he's had basically 2 years at Hibs injury free.
Yeah.
You just got to hope that's down to the state of that pitch and state of the weather down at Borough, because that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
How do we rate the business overall? If you're going to give it a rating out of 10, just a quick one, what would you give it?
Providing there's a few go between now and the end of the month, I'd give it an 8.
8, fair.
If we somehow get rid of Ndong and Djilabodji and one off Cattermole and Ndong.
And Oviedo, do you mean?
Yes, one Cattermole Oviedo. I would say you're nearing on a 10. Like when you look at what they had to do when they come in, the scale of the turnaround for me to target a certain type of player. I mean, we've been very, very we've took our time with the transfers. I mean, Stuart Donald sat right in that chair and told us how worried he was because he gets worried about it, but the recruitment team, the manager, weren't worried. They were pretty confident that they get the players in. Since then, we've signed a lot of good players for this level. I like that they were so diligent, and I like that they took the time with everything. So I'm pretty happy with the business so far.
That's a massive tick in the manager's box, not just to come in and go, I've got no players.
Yeah.
And just go out and just say, who can we get? Right, let's go and get 5 loanees in because then I know I've got 5 players.
Yeah.
I think it would have been really, really easy to do that.
That could happen last year.
Speaks a lot for his intelligence, though, isn't he? Isn't he a graduate in economics? He's quite, he's got his head screwed on when it comes to money. I mean, for Billy Sharp, for instance, we could have thrown money at that. I know he didn't want to come in the end, but Jack Ross only wanted him on loan.
Did you see Noah had a bid turned down on deadline day?
He didn't say whether it was a permanent bid or what.
Yeah, it was a loan, but Jack Ross changed his mind and decided he wanted him on loan because we're only going to get him for a year.
Yeah, he didn't think he cut it in the Championship, which I agree with.
Yeah,
but he's a 10-goal man in the Championship, isn't he?
But he's 33 by the
time you get there, and I think our aspirations may be higher than that. I think you look at the age of the majority of the players we've brought in this summer. They're all about 24, 25, 26, with good experience and the capability to not only play in League One but play a step higher.
The big one to look at for me is Wyke. He's the only one with a 3-year deal.
Yeah.
That's interesting that they gave him a 3-year deal. He's what, 24, 25, Charlie Wyke?
And the fee that Sunderland pay to Bradford, there is a portion of that which we could end up paying out provided we get the Premier League. So they are looking at Wyke as a player, not just for this season but the next couple. So I'm really happy with the business. I respect how, because they could have thought like Stuart Donald and the majority of fans panicked a little bit, and they didn't. They took the time, and they've managed to get a player like Power on deadline day, or just after the deadline, who any team in this league would have been thankful for. I just think they've done very well.
It's nice how balanced the squad is that they've built as well. This is the most balanced squad we've had in a good few years, and I think a lot of that credit deserves to go to Tony Coton. Now, obviously, when Jack Ross came down, I think Donald himself, or maybe one of the members of the club, said that they were a little bit worried about his lack of experience. Ross himself, actually, it was Ross himself, who said that he was a little bit worried about his own lack of experience in the English transfer window. So one of the big parts about bringing Tony Coton in was he's well experienced and well versed in working and operating within the English lower levels, that transfer window. So Coton deserves a lot of credit as well as Ross for the balanced squad that they've put together.
And Richard Hill as well, who's the guy doing a lot of the deals. What I like is they've got a I guess a committee on transfers, and everybody knows their job and it works. And when's the last time we had that? You had Martin Bain trying to do everything on his own at one point at Sunderland.
No, Martin Bain.
No, but that's where we've come from. Even though we've had to drop a league, the restructuring that's went on is working out benefit in pretty much every
compared to what David Rees said last week on the pod. Dave Priest, sorry,
you're useless.
I'm all over the place today. I'm blaming the beer.
You need to have your show poo.
Maybe a bottle of Smirnoff by 12 was a bad idea yesterday. But Priest was saying, like, Camp, when we signed Camp, he obviously knows Adrian Tucker. Adrian Tucker got a call off one of the guys that was down at Cardiff, was like, he's getting Lee Camp, and then Tucker, our goalkeeping coach, went, that says all about the approach from this last season to this season in terms of transfers.
Right, I'm going to jump onto a bit of, we've done an hour. I know we've seemingly jumped to like an hour and a half podcast now, but the game so we've got Thursday and Sunday, Sheffield Wednesday on Thursday. Last time I heard we'd sold about 3,000 tickets, which isn't ideal. I think I was on Thursday last week, I was told we sold 3,000.
Yeah, well, they expected to be low attendance. There's only 3 blocks open in the East Stand.
Well,
West Stand.
When I spoke to Chris Waters, he was saying that they should have opened the full stadium because people are reluctant to not sit in their season ticket seat.
It was funny, my mate was buying tickets and he went on the thing that shows you the stadium. And he says to me, it's nearly sold out. He said there was only like a few seats left. I can't believe it. Sheffield Wednesday in the cup. I was like, no, it's because they've only opened up some of it. But
yeah,
I think there's just so many games this year because you've got the check trade as well. It's especially with it being on telly as well. Mm-hmm. It's one of those where, like, as a fan, you're probably and ahhing. Sheffield Wednesday, they're going to play a weakened team. Can I be bothered? That's on the telly.
On a Thursday. I don't know if we've ever
Thursday?
played a Thursday
What?
night home game. I know we've
Thursday
played
night
away a
football.
couple of times, but never at home.
Uh,
That I'm aware.
I don't like it.
back when we were a Premier League club and we were getting 40,000, even the cup games then we're only getting 13, 14,000.
Yeah, what's
You
the
know.
point?
And it's on TV. I wouldn't blame anyone for
It's
not
going to be
going, you know.
horrible. I just know that I'm going to get berated with.
I mean, I'm
tweets.
going because I'm an idiot, but I don't
I'm
know
going
why.
as well. But it's
Yeah,
going to be.
I'll be there definitely, but I can totally understand why people don't want to go. And it's just a for me. I'm really looking forward to the game because I want to. It's going to be an opportunity to see
What
more
against
of-
higher teams.
that and just see a couple of the players who maybe need the minutes. You know, it'll be nice. O'Neill will probably start. You would imagine.
Yeah, I think him and Palmer might.
Yeah.
No, you just jumped in straight away and took the next question. I was just going to ask you who you think's
go on
going to
Nah, you're redundant now, can I?
No, yeah. Well, to throw it back, who's playing?
Well, I don't know on the injury front. We'll probably get a better idea when he speaks to Phil and the rest of the press before the game.
When is
but
that? The next press conference?
Tuesday, I think.
yeah, so you'll have a good idea by you'll probably know his team by then. You'll know which of the injured players are available for selection.
I think Robson and McGeoch will play if they're fit. I mean, I don't think McGeoch will play 90 minutes, but I think they'll want to get him back on the pitch because he's had a couple of weeks out of it now. If Robson's fit, he'll definitely pick him because, like I say, he wants to use him this year. So
Is
they
he
want to get some minutes
Back in training yet, Ethan Robson? Because I know
I
McGeoch and them
think
are-
he started training last week, but just wasn't quite
good.
ready for the game.
It'd be interesting to
Darwin.
see if O'Neill starts. If you think that, then
I think.
is he going to drop his? Will he drop his captain then, Honeyman, or would he play him on
Yeah,
the wing maybe?
I think he might.
I think he might drop him for a cup game. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got no problem with that. I just wonder if that's something he would do. Like,
What's he going to do up front? Because he'll have to play Madja. logically.
not maybe make give Nelson a chance.
Ozturk?
Nelson's not fit.
No, right.
Is it not?
Nelson's.
I guess Madge will play then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because obviously they're going to be thinking, oh, well, we're not actually going to have another striker.
Well,
if that's that.
actually, funny enough, I think we might be trying to get a striker in by then. So, if they are still in that mindset of we need another striker, then I would imagine whoever he is will be in the team by
Fair.
Thursday.
And what about for the Scunthorpe game on Sunday, or is that just too far away to even think about? Who's going to be playing?
McGeoch. Well, presuming the injury situation is as we expect it to be, McGeoch in for Mumba.
Yeah.
Push Power a bit further forward. Other than that, same team.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. And, barring someone coming in and giving a man a match performance against Sheff Wed, I would agree.
Think Wright will get a game against Sheffield.
Yeah,
Yes.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe. What's happened with Strychek? See,
I think he'd probably just play with the 23s again, maybe. The interesting thing with the 23s was that we've signed the keeper to replace Michael Wood, who left. So you could see Strychek leave on loan, but who's going to be looking for a keeper really in the leagues?
I think
That's a problem.
Ideally, you'd want to loan Strychek out because obviously he had that last year, and then got injured, didn't he? But it's difficult now because most football league teams have pretty much done their business,
Yeah.
so nobody's going to be looking for a first choice goalkeeper. So it might be quite hard to find the right place for him actually.
I'm wounded for him, because he got that loan to Accrington, was the first choice goalkeeper in the game he started and got injured and had to leave, and they ended up winning the league. And it's gutting for a minute because he
Yeah.
could have been a part of that, and that would have been massive for us, massive for him.
but he could have been if he'd went out with Accrington last year, or the year, what was it, the year before maybe? That was last year.
No, it was the one that they won the league last
Yeah,
year.
well, they had 2 years though where they came close in the year before. They
But
never
you
went out.
imagine he stays in the team,
Yeah, then we.
and stays there all season, and they get promoted, and then you maybe look at that and think, well, you could be our first choice goalkeeper this season. I'm not saying that might necessarily how it went, but it's disappointing for him. I would, and that's why I'm a little bit gutted he never got a chance to leave.
Yeah, I like the
before
look
now.
of Striak as well. Like whenever he plays, he looks solid, but he smacks of a keeper who's just had no real football, like not played men's football,
Yeah.
not really got stuck into like a hustle and bustle, like. And that loan deal, if it did work out in the end, would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, with Alan Armstrong at Blythe. See if he needs a keeper. Could work. I won 8-1 at the weekend.
Didn't they get humped the week before though?
I don't care. They won 8-1. The big game. I've got a few final questions, mainly for Phil. About, I mean, you're in and around the club, aren't you? Quite a lot.
Yes.
Would you say so? Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you noticed much of a change since the summer?
Um,
Well, since I suppose the old regime left and the new one came in.
There's probably less people around.
that's certainly true. Yeah. An absolutely massive difference. Partially just because of, not necessarily because this is great and everything before was bad, but I think you're signing a different kind of player, players without egos. I mean, yesterday we chatted to Max Power for the first time, and players after games especially were always itching to get away. Max Power couldn't have been more generous with his time, chatting, just absolutely fantastic. And that goes for a lot of the players. The biggest difference for me that I've noticed, which might sound a bit weird, is the difference in the cars leaving the training ground to where they were. Yeah. I know that sounds like a daft thing, but these guys are driving normal cars.
Oh, well, they're driving.
I've seen minis going out.
Oh, nice.
Nice. Don't get me wrong. Nice cars.
Nice cars, just not.
But not like black as out.
Any Seat Ibizas?
No Seat Ibizas.
No Seat Ibizas.
I'll keep my eye out though for you. Now that I'm looking for it. But I think it's just there is definitely a bit more openness. Not because the previous regime were evil, and it's just a nature of where you are. But I think the backroom staff definitely have tried to make a big effort to bring everything a little bit tighter at the academy. And there's one of the things Jack Ross has talked about, which has been really interesting, was that everybody says the academy's amazing, it's the best thing in the world, and it is. The facilities are incredible. But he says actually it's a massive, massive, massive facility, and it can keep people apart, and it can be quite hard to build a togetherness. And he talks about when he was at St Mirren, obviously they trained in fairly limited facilities, and he said but everyone was together and he knew everything was going on, not in a control freak kind of way. He just picked up on players' moods because you could see what they were like about the place.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden he's at the academy and he's lost a bit of, him and his coaching staff have lost that closeness.
That's interesting.
So that I found that really interesting because it's not something I'd ever processed before. So there's definitely a bit of a sense of a back to basics, a bit of a more grounded, partially because of the kind of players they've recruited, partially because of what they've done, and partially just because of the circumstances, because of where you are playing. But there's been a lot of positives in that sense.
It kind of mirrors what Ross has said himself about trying to improve the psychology of the players, which I think is massive. Like, you can't underestimate how difficult it'll be from getting from such a horrendous losing mentality of 2 years from older players. I think Ross has mentioned a lot the psychological differences, like the working with the players. That really sits well into that. So one thing that he said that really sticks out in my mind was against Hartlepool after we went 1-0 down, and Don Love made a bit of a mistake and the fans got on his back a little bit. Now, he didn't mention the fans at all, but he just said he could see in his body language that Love himself was thinking on the pitch, I made a mistake, here we go again. And he was like, he needs to pick these players up and get that mentality away. So bringing everyone closer together like that, making sure physically and metaphorically closer together really makes a lot of sense.
Which feeds in a little bit into what, not to go over all ground, but it feeds a little bit into the Cattermole thing.
Yeah.
You know, you can't have that approach and then say, but I'm not going to include you because last year you didn't play very well or whatever, you know. So that's a big part of his ethos, and it's been really, really interesting to see it so far.
How's your dealings with Martin Bain in the past? Did you meet him? Did you speak to him?
I met Martin 3 times, I think. To be fair, when I took the role the January of the season, we got relegated, so I kind of missed him coming into the club, so I never really had much of a relationship with Martin just because things were already kind of up in flames by the time I arrived. He was okay on a personal level. I had no problems with him. He was obviously, as some supporters know, he was quite a smooth talker. He came across in a certain way, quite controlled. Like I say, I never had any problems with him really, but there was just a power vacuum at the club because there was just nothing coming from above. The transfer decisions that were made in that time, obviously there was a financial context. That was what hammered him, because he might have had all these things he wanted to do for the culture of the club and what he wanted to do on the business side of things, but none of it mattered because the whole thing was just collapsing on the pitch, and he never was able to get a grip of that, which meant anything else he might have wanted to do was irrelevant. I can't say I had any personal problems with him, but the results were there for themselves, weren't they?
How do you think Chris Coleman would have done if he'd stayed? Something I don't think any of us have actually talked about, how he would have done.
Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, it's difficult.
I think he would have done fine.
Yeah. I
think it took him a long time last year to find his best team, and that's why Sunderland went down.
There was a stupid insistence on playing D3 at the back or 5 at the back.
Yeah, I think there were certain things he picked up on too late. Gooch was an obvious example of that. He suddenly started playing him on the right wing in a 4-3-3, and it was like, oh my God, Gooch is unbelievable. And if he picked up on that 10 games earlier, who knows? I think Chris would have done. I was gutted for Chris because so much of what Jack Ross has wanted to do in terms of bringing the club together, Chris saw that and he wanted to do, but it was impossible for him because there was the obvious issue with the ownership that made it very hard to bring the club completely united. And he also had things going on like Rodwell. So you can't go into a dressing room and say, right, lads, we're all going to come together, we're all going to lump in. When the guy on the biggest money is just sitting in the gym, lifting weights, doesn't want to get involved. I think a lot of the things that the owners wanted to do with the club, if they'd sat down and had a meeting with Chris Coleman, there would have been broad agreement. I think in terms of the kind of player he wanted to bring in, the kind of culture he wanted to create, I don't think they would have disagreed on a lot. But at the same time, like we're talking about with Cattermole and O'Shea, is it the worst thing in the world that someone completely fresh has come in? Probably not. But he would have done fine. Yeah. It took him too long to find his best team at Sunderland, but he knows football. He would have done fine.
Last year, I got in quite a few arguments with fellow Roker Rapport guys or just other fans or whatever about Coleman. I kind of defended him a lot. I was a bit of a Coleman apologist. But if you look now, I think if Coleman was in charge now, he'd probably still get a decent squad together, decent balanced squad together. But I don't know if we'd be looking into the season and thinking, no, we could win this. Because if you look tactically at it, I just think Ross is just a far cry from Coleman. Tactically, he's just completely superior.
But it's you say that, and that's fine.
But he had obviously both hands tied behind his back.
Coleman had no strikers.
That's true.
Yeah, it's obviously,
you know what I mean?
There's obviously all these caveats.
Yeah, maybe Mourinho would have kept Sunderland up even without a striker. I don't think Coleman was a great tactician, but the place was a mess, and he was. I loved that he came in and said, "Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's Sunderland, and I'm going to sort it." But it was a little bit naive. I hate the argument, because I know we had it with Moyes as well. I hate the argument that no one could have kept Sunderland or whatever, because obviously it's total nonsense. But I just think the challenges were just so great, and the biggest thing was that the way the club was, he wasn't able to kind of pull it together in the way he wanted. And I'm a big believer tactics are important, but it's not as important as getting the mood right and getting you'll know yourselves from your own life and work or whatever. Having that spirit and that togetherness, I think, carries you a long way. And he was never able to do that, and I think that was primarily really why it went down the way it did. But I still think he's a good manager.
I'm glad to see him get another job in football as well.
Very lucrative one. It's worked out all right for him.
Yeah,
isn't
a bit of a fortune cookie.
Yeah. He hasn't done. He didn't do too bad at Sunderland either, though. There was no way he would have probably stayed on the money he was on in League One.
He already said in interviews, didn't he, that he would take a pay cut?
Yeah, because he was looking over his shoulder a bit, I think.
He also, obviously, at the time, we all assumed it was just about pay, but obviously it's since come to light they had this clause in his contract.
Yeah, it's out of
it was
his
a lot
hands.
cheaper to get rid of him under the old ownership, which I think is what he actually meant when he said, I'll basically redraw my contract. I don't know, it's a shame. Listen, as a journalist, you're biased to managers who come in and speak well and give you good quotes. And
he was full of them, wasn't he?
That's natural. He was brilliant. I used to love spending time with him. He was a great... It sounds like I was in love with him. Maybe I was a little bit. Probably the same with Jack Ross as well, to be fair. But no, I wish it had worked out.
Looking back on last season, and to be fair, the Ellis short reign, how do you feel about criticisms of the local press? And we I suppose, could also be in that as well, and that maybe we didn't do enough to force the issue.
I think I'd say it's a question I think about a lot as well, because to be fair, Sunderland isn't just my job. Obviously, it is primarily my job. But to be fair, I was season ticket for an awful long time. So it is, obviously, because it's now my job, I don't have the same connection and support as CU in a slightly different way, and that's fine, and I do as well. So I thought a lot about what can we do. Ultimately, when it comes down to it, you can only be accountable for your own writing. And I do, in my own personal, I would say that I think if you followed sort of my writing through the season, I think I was very critical about Ellis. But it's definitely the case that our coverage didn't have the tone of, say, maybe other clubs, other papers in the Northeast.
The Chronicle, basically.
I don't know why that was, which might sound strange, but it wasn't a decision, we're not going to call out short, whatever, because I felt like we were. I certainly felt like in my writing I was, but it didn't come across the same way, and it's something I still think about now, because like I say, it might just sound like I'm just saying it. It's not just like my job to me, because you do want to do it well, because it's your club, and because my family, it's a Sunderland fans, we mates are Sunderland fans, so you kind of feel that pressure as well, because you know they're kind of keeping track of what you're writing and stuff. So it's a question I probably haven't fully got my own answer to.
Yeah, I think
sometimes it's out of your hands as well. You can only follow editorial as well.
Well, I think that what I would say is there was never any pressure from above that you can't criticised or anything like that. We were never said you can't do this or can't do that. So I wouldn't pass the book like that. Like I say, the thing in my head that I haven't quite worked, I didn't feel maybe what we were writing was maybe being... People obviously felt that it wasn't going far enough, or the Echo or whatever wasn't doing enough. And I never quite cracked that because I felt my own writing was pretty strong against Short and what have you. But clearly it didn't come across in a certain way. Clearly didn't get that kind of traction or that attention or whatever, which I don't really have the answer to.
Do you ever worry with, obviously you have access to the club, do you ever worry that if you write something that is, horrendously, not horrendous, but very critical, that they might be like, well, you're not coming in, or, we'll cut your ties to the club? Or
No, not really. I mean, to Sunderland's credit, they've never gone down that route. I think there was one with Poye a few years ago, wasn't there? Someone got banned, I think.
Yeah, the Coverdale stuff.
Generally speaking, Sunderland have never gone down that route. So I never really worried about that. And actually, to be honest, sometimes you can actually benefit from that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We wouldn't if the club were like, oh, you can't come in or whatever, we wouldn't all of a sudden be like, oh my God, what are we going to do? You would just adapt to it. So honestly, that was never a concern. Genuinely wasn't. And it wouldn't be now if things started to go wrong. Definitely not.
And how have you found the new regime as a whole? What's your relationship like with them? Are they as open with you as what they've been with us? Or
yeah, they've been really, really approachable, really helpful. I think obviously there is a desire to kind of put fans first, and you've seen that in obviously Stuart coming in here and stuff. We had a press conference with Stuart, but kind of on the record and what have you, he's gone to fans first. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. At the end of the day, it's to everyone's benefits if they're willing to work with everyone. And from a fan looking at now, I'd be looking at saying, well, the fan media's getting great access, so the quality of their content goes up. We're getting decent access, so the quality of our. I just think it's a win-win situation for everyone, really. It's certainly this kind of fan-first approach. It's certainly not sidelined the local media, if that makes sense. It's not being always speaking to them, therefore there's no dialogue with you or whatever. I found them to be approachable and helpful. And it kind of, it's everyone's responsibility to keep that up. And what I mean by that is it's their responsibility not to go hiding if results go or they make some bad mistakes. And maybe it's our responsibility as journalists and as you guys, maybe it's our responsibility to ensure that when it does go wrong, that we're constructive about it and civilised about it. So it's kind of, now it's fine because the team's doing all right. We're all enjoying it. Happy days. We can all be friends kind of thing. But maybe it's both parties are going to have to, if it starts to go wrong, they're going to have to make sure they don't just go immediately ground, and maybe we have to make sure we're constructive about the way we go criticising it, and that's going to be to the benefit of everyone in the long run.
The final thing that I'm going to bring up is we've had a home game and an away game. Do we like League One? Is League One almost
it's class?
Yeah, is it almost because we are at this level and you get it's like proper football, isn't it?
Yeah, I absolutely love it.
Is it better than going to like the Liberty Stadium?
Oh God, aye. Yeah. Apart from the fact that that's like 9 hours away.
Yeah,
that's one of the worst away games. But it's just nice, like proper fans. You've seen proper fans about. I was mentioning on the way back to one of my mates yesterday. We're just sitting on the train, half cut by this point. It's like you're talking shite on the way back from the away game. You knock out of all the adrenaline going out your body, and you're thinking, you're like, no, those Luton fans are actually properly sound. Like you
didn't see anyone with hashtag free Tommy on the back of the shirt.
No, God no. Oh, thank God for
we
that.
don't get political on this podcast. We're not with Damien, not here anymore. Anyway.
No, but, no, but they were just like, they were asking us like, oh, like what's it like being down here? Like, what are your expectations of the season, whatever. Just being sound. You go to a Premier League team, being amongst thousands at Man United, and not a single person would say a fucking word to you. Not a single one. It's nice just to be around proper ground. I mean, I'm properly old school. I hate Sky Sports. I hate the Premier League. I prefer old school football. I thought Kenilworth Road was an amazing little horrible shit stadium. It was absolutely brilliant. Like I was stuck behind a pillar where I couldn't see half of like the goal, and then couldn't see any of their end because the roof was so low. But it's class. Like how many teams? Don't go to the Premier League and stand in your row and be falling over your seat when you score because there's literally a random step exactly where your chair is. It's class, man.
Right. Well, James had his say. What do we think?
Yeah, I think everybody, not just. I mean, we've spent a lot of this show talking about things that have changed at the club, but I think the fans needed needed this. They need this. However long it lasts, we need it. We need just to start afresh. Remember what it's like to enjoy being a football fan again. I mean, we spoke about it last week, but the euphoria, the noise when we scored that winner against Charlton, we could have been playing in the Northern League and it wouldn't have mattered. All Sunderland fans want to see is a team on the pitch that they think reflects them, that wins games occasionally. And I've got full confidence that that's what we're going to see this year. And if we don't go up, but we give it a good go and the players try the hardest every week, I don't think you'll find a single Sunderland fan who can complain about that. I just think we all needed this, and it's been nice. It's been nice, and it will be nice to come up against different teams and teams we've never played before.
It's a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though it took double relegation, it's still
and we're all gonna love it if it goes well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Phil, how do you find it?
I think the main thing I've taken away from the last two games actually is I probably had kind of like a caricature of what the football was going to be like in League One. I thought Luton were a really good side yesterday. They were physical, but they played some decent stuff and tactically really clever in what they did. Charlton, I thought Lyle Taylor looked better than 80% of the strikers I watched in the Championship last year.
Yeah.
So actually, I've been quite pleasantly surprised by the standard. I know Charlton and Luton are probably two of the better teams, but yeah, I've enjoyed it so far. I do miss watching the best players in the world at the Stadium of Light, but that's only enjoyable when your team can compete with them.
Yeah.
You know, so I have to say I miss De Bruyne, players like that coming to the Stadium of Light, but that's only worthwhile when your team can give them a go. You know.
Did you get Wi-Fi yesterday? That's always the things when you go to these
we had
grounds.
We had Wi-Fi, but the power was a bit of an issue. So my laptop plug was plugged into an extension cable, which was plugged into an extension cable, which was plugged into another extension cable, which was plugged into like one plug at the back of the press box. So like, if anyone moved their knee and touched like one cable, everyone's power would like just go. But it's different. I'd take that over going to Reading with the five.
Go to Reading.
The five Reading.
You'll never get a job there.
Middle of nowhere as well.
Come on, no.
It's meant to be the worst one.
That Ultras corner. Oh my word!
It's embarrassing, isn't it?
Anything like it. I am pretty hard on Reading, but they're managed by Paul Clement.
I think in this part of the country, we just have no sort of idea of what Reading is because they're just
irrelevant.
Totally, they're just in a different sphere of influence.
When we played away there last season, we had the away guide on the site that Tom writes, and it actually went viral amongst Reading fans.
Yeah, they loved it.
They loved it. They were like, that just nails us. I think he called them the most nondescript town in the United Kingdom.
It is, isn't it?
It's literally like a shithole just outside of London, which is the whole town's an industrial estate, and the stadium might as well be the football metaphor for an industrial estate. There's nothing to it.
Right,
I don't miss that.
That's a good way to end the podcast.
Whereas League One teams, they're all just like, every single one's different. They're all batshit crazy, and it's amazing.
They are all unique. It's funny, actually, I was watching Match of the Day yesterday, and I saw Wolves Stadium, and I was like, that is like such a weird looking ground now. And it sort of reminds of the League One grounds where they build things at different stages. You got one modern stand, one stand that was built in 1912.
Bradford's the most bizarre.
Yeah.
It's like a League One St James's Park.
What I would say is it's great at the moment, but if in 2 years' time, the Sunderland one would be going, Tilly Pot,
going down to Scotland.
Yeah.
I went to Carlisle in pre-season last year, and they had a burger van pitch side. That's feed that into my veins, please. I love how I that.
The worst thing was
Carlisle's End, where it's just mud with a bit of rail on the top.
Yeah.
Did anyone watch Lincoln in the playoffs last year? And they had the potty things, and then they had the lorry that took it away just at the side of the pitch, just for Sky, just to have a full view of the picture.
Luton's club shop yesterday was just a portal cabin. Yeah, I saw that. It's just absolutely quality.
Just wait until we go to Oxford when they couldn't finish the ground, so they only got 3 stands in a car park.
Yeah, they do behind the goal, don't they?
It's literally a car park. It's amazing.
Split loyalties for Stuart Donald, isn't it? To his club.
Nah, man. He doesn't care about them jobbers anymore. He's a massive lads fan now.
Yeah, it probably is. Right. Anyway, we should end this. So follow on Twitter. Follow Phil on Twitter as well. Give him some abuse. Give Gav abuse as well. He deserves it.
You've got something to do for your Sabutio?
People are always using my Sabutio things.
I saw your Charlton one. I haven't seen the Luton one.
Yeah, well, I did the Luton one, and then some people are just like, well, you're probably sad, and I'm like, well, it just enhances my video. I only do it for my video. And honestly, it only takes 10 minutes to do. Like, it's not like it takes us
You don't
forever.
have to justify it.
Yeah, I know, but I feel like I do. I feel
That
like
hour you
You're
spent
letting them
playing
win,
Subbuteo.
man. Just
you think
Yeah.
I am letting the trolls win. That's what it is. Don't like the Subbuteo.
you be you.
The haters.
That's gonna hate on the Subbuteo.
You're like a FIFA Luddite now. You just cast away the PS4 games.
yeah.
How are you selling Subbuteo for 3 hours a night?
That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do a season review by the end because I do both home and away goals.
Oh, come on, have your commentary all the way through.
Possibly.
For 90 minutes of that
I need
Camp
a
Life accent.
co-commentator,
Ooh.
Right. Yeah. So follow all on Twitter. It's been a pleasure, Phil. Thanks for coming in. I'm sure
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed
we'll have you in later in the year when we're getting close to promotion. Gav, thanks for coming in
No
as
problem.
well. Last minute sub because we thought James wasn't coming.
Yep.
And James, thanks for telling me that you weren't coming and then coming in the end. The difficult human.
And thank you for doing your Subbuteo videos.
Thanks. Yes. That is the one we wanted. Subbuteo videos. I think they're good. I like them.
For every hater, we're going to block a hater.
You think?
Yes.
Block all the haters. Yeah. I don't care. As long as they view the video, and I don't really care. As long as they're engaging with it, who cares? I get sponsorship on the Subbuteo videos. Could get Subbuteo to sponsor it.
Someone called Subbuteo Enthusiast followed us on Twitter after it.
Nice.
So,
See, maybe that's me. That's
Yeah.
my
You.
That's my second Subbuteo enthusiast.
Are you gonna start like tweaking yourself? On
Well,
Subbuteo
I'm gonna
videos?
start building the stadium like out of Lego. I think. Stadium right out.
that is a bit.
Oh, you could be a Subbuteo groundhopper.
Could be.
Just build loads of them.
Take a lot of time. But every week, I'll be stuck for hours. Right, okay, I'm ending this now before it stews into something ridiculous. So yeah, follow her on Twitter. That's it.